to help us with this discussion. And I have with me my colleague Gagan, who is based out of India. The two of us, the three of us, we're going to present to you how we propose to manage the digital content in the context of your HR solution, which is SuccessFactors. So with that brief, I would like to hand over to Gagan to take over the conversation. Gagan, over to you. Mukesh, I think Gagan and Varna have been put out of the meeting. Is there something that we're trying to change as the settings? Yeah, she's back again.
No, I am not doing any changing.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Varna.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now. Yeah, and Gagan seems to have left the meeting. We'll wait for him to catch up again.
There was just a little note that came up in the Zoom meeting, so I think he'll be back in a short while.
Mm-hmm.
So while you wait for Gagan, maybe you can talk to us about the kind of partnership that you have with SAP.
Sure. Varna, you want to take that piece which is covered in Gagan's deck, or you want me to do that?
I can cover that if.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just share my slides.
Can you also check in the backend, message him and check if there is a challenge for him to join in? Oh, Gagan is here already.
He's back again.
Yeah.
Hey, Gagan. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Salil. So we'll start the session. We'll introduce you to the topic, as Salil mentioned. And can you see my screen, Salil and team?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so the topic for today from OpenText is digitalization and effective management of HR documentations. That is what we are going to talk about today in our webinar. Give me a minute. So I'm sharing my screen. Yeah. All right. So the agenda for today would be, we'll give you a short introduction about OpenText, what we do and how do we work in conjunction with SAP and SuccessFactors teams. Moving on from there, we will talk about the changing needs in today's digital era from the employee and HR perspective. Thereon, I'll get my colleague Varna, who would talk about how do we actually manage documents and documentations, which is a huge part in the entire HR ecosystem. Followed by a couple of case studies that we have seen how our customers have actually benefited from these kind of solutions. So a short introduction about OpenText. So OpenText is an AIM company which revolves around any kind of a documentation or content that needs to be moved in and out of the organization or managed within the organizations. So the content could be of any documents of any nature. It could be in HR documentations, which is a huge part in the HR perspective of an organization. It could be a financial documentations, purchase, ERP documents, and so on and so forth. So that is what we will maintain and manage in the entire gamut of EIM solutions by OpenText, which is a Solex partner of SAP. When we talk about experience, it is a documentations that do with the outside world from the internal organization. So it could be something like a bank statements or utility bills and so on and so forth. Analytics, when we talk about analytics, we do more of a text analytics analysis, where a document needs to be analyzed, summarized, sentiment needs to be evaluated and so on and so forth. When you talk about process, any process automation on the basis of documentation is what we will take care of. So be it something that starts from an invoice and that invoice document, invoice receipt, and that moves across the SAP applications or landscapes. So from that, you understand that yes, OpenText is one of the players who deals specifically on the content or the documentation part of it. And that is where we gel or we work in tandem with SAP, because SAP is something who does a lot of business process automation. And to fuel this business process automation from the documentation perspective is what we take care as part of our OpenText strategy. From the Gartner's perspective and the Forrester's wave that we have, OpenText is a leader quadrant, and it has been in leaders quadrant for quite a while now. And that makes a superior combination of SAP and OpenText when it comes down to any business process automation in tandem with the document arena in the entire gamut of things. Okay, when you talk about OpenText and SAP, so that is where the combination of OpenText and SAP has part of a Solex partnership that we have with SAP. What does the customers benefit from the Solex partnership is it's a one team approach from SAP and OpenText. So SAP would be the SAP and SuccessFactors would be your licensed teams who would work in tandem with you. You have to raise any kind of issues within the SAP itself. So there is no ticket movement between SAP and OpenText. The technical tickets that comes down from SAP will be taken by OpenText. We have joint customers of more than 5,000 in numbers right now across the globe. We have 20 plus solution extension solutions, not only on the HR perspective, but also other documents related solution. As I just mentioned, we have a tight partnership with SAP. We have been winning the Pinnacle Award for 13 years in last 15 years of partnership that we have with the SAP. Roadmap, and we have a strategic alignment between the two organizations. That predominantly means that if there is a shift in the business process from SAP SuccessFactors teams, that is what we will also put into our documentation solutions or products, and that follows the entire seamless approach for our end customers. And finally, yes, we are a Solex partnership. With Solex partnership, you get the topmost attention on the solutions, roadmaps, product issues, and so on and so forth, along with the licensing and support arena to it. So when I come down to solution part of it, from the HR SuccessFactors teams, we have a predominantly an extended ECM solution that talks or that imbibes the entire documentation of an HR nature into SuccessFactors. Not only SuccessFactors has an application, be it even SAP HCM or some modules in SAP HCM and some modules on SuccessFactors for an organization moving away or moving transition to the SuccessFactors teams. That kind of arena is also well taken care by the OpenText solutions that we have, and we would be able to integrate both your applications together as far as HR documentations is concerned for your organization. Apart from the HR documentations, as I mentioned, we also have other line of businesses, predominantly on the finance, purchase, sales order, engineering documentations. So anywhere you see kind of documents, images, videos, photographs that comes along with your SAP business processes, that is where our OpenText product or a solution is where you will be able to find it. So moving on from the OpenText and what we do, let us get into get into a real situation of an HR or an HR teams that we see right now. So I'll just showcase you some of the issues that we are seeing in, or the changes that we see in the employee experience right now. So from the HR perspective, what we are seeing is we are seeing a lot of remote workforce. With the pandemic coming in for the last 2 years, this has been a story across organizations, across industries, where a lot of people are working from home, and that is a remote working place that we are finding. HR shared service itself is something which has been moving out from the central locations to their respective homes, working across the similar processes or similar lines of actions that they do. At times, due to the changes in the laws or the regulations, we see dramatic increase and decrease both ways from the staff perspective. Reskilling is something which has initiated a lot of HR business processes across the organizations. And there is a lot of ad hoc requirements on policies, procedures. In the entire gamut, if you see, if the paper movement and the speed of paper communication would not match the kind of perspective that we are looking into, and this has to go in with a digital approach and a digital manner when we talk about the entire reshaping of these policies and procedures for HR perspective. When you talk about even the BPHR, the exchange of documents, the correspondence, and any business processes, be it recruitment, separation, that is a document-centric process that needs a dramatic shift in the way that we are operating today. So if you see the top challenges that we have seen in the past experience from us, HR teams or the organizations are working towards getting maximization of the employee experience. So they want a good employee experience which is very important, as we say that employee is the most important resource in an organization. Attracting and nurturing top talent. We don't want our employees to go into some non-productive or documents areas which are not they are not bound by, and they are trying to find a lot of loopholes in getting those documentations in. So we want to attract and keep that talent perspective. Managing the compliance, which is also a very important part. As per the regulations of different countries, there are different laws of keeping this personal data, as HR documentations would come down to a lot of personal data information, be it their date of birth, education, so and so forth, documents that come into the arena. And basically the focus is to align the entire strategy from the employee or the HR experience perspective. All right. So when we talk about the new hire process, so a hiring is a process which talks about recruitment, onboarding, which is a document-centric process again. And what we have seen in the past is if we do not have a good hiring process or a seamless hiring processes, there are chances that there are 2x% charges times that the employee would like to look for a new opportunity elsewhere during the onboarding process and the recruitment process itself. What we have seen is also if there is a good process and good experience at the beginning from the for the employees, there is 82% chances that they have a much better retention and productivity among them. And what we have also seen is 54% average new hire activities completed during the onboarding part of it, and that we all have experienced, right? When we onboard, that is a process which is a lot of document centric, a lot of communication, at times a legal processes, a legal documentation that needs to be in the entire process of it. All right. Transactions. When you talk about the transactions, employee transactions are also very important, be it something to do with the leave applications, be it to do with their retentions, when it talks about their promotion cycles. So all these are document centric processes which results in the business transaction with a document getting generated out of it. So what we need to get into the system is a productive way to get into to manage these documents and the letters that we distribute in a much more digital manner to it. Not only that, we also need to have some kind of a self-service transactions or a document generation ability given to the end users or the end employees directly to lessen the burden of HR professionals that gets managed to it. So something like an address proof letter or a letter that needs to be generated for their employment letters, which needs to be given to some kind of agencies for say renting a house or any kind of a gas connections. We don't want our HR teams to come in and generate those kind of documentations. There could be a self-service kind of a portal. So that is where the seamless experience by an employee, the moment he decides he needs the letter, he can generate those kind of a communication transactions by themselves. Separation is also a very important process in the entire gamut of the things, because that is a process where an employee has decided that he needs to move out of the organization, and any kind of miscommunication or misrepresentation by the organization can result into a lot of legal issues, hassles, the brand equity of the organization, and so on and so forth. So what we have seen in the past is this separation and retirement policies retention also needs a seamless experience from the documentation and communication perspective for the employees moving out. So from this things that we see, what we have understood is there has to be a digitalization and a management of the entire employee documentation in a seamless manner. It could be on cloud or as per the organization structure on-prem can also be managed, but there has to be a business process of digitalization and managing these documents. We want these documents to get linked to the leading applications like SuccessFactors, which would generate this kind of a transactions, and documents would be a result of these transactions. We need to have employees or the HR, the BPHRs, the of the employees to have those permissions based on the roles, the documents, the criticality of the documents, so on and so forth, so that they have the right and access to those digital documents straight away. We need to embrace multi-channel document generation and distribution capability, as we don't want to block down each and every activity to the HR employees and the HR teams to work on behalf of the entire employee generation of the documents based approach. What we also need to have a 360-degree view of employee documentations. So when you talk about 360-degree, it could be that some documents are like a living documents. It could be something like a passport or a visa, which has a time-bound validity of the document. At times we forget to renew or update those documentations in the organization structures. So we need to have some kind of a mechanism where we would be able to understand when is that document getting expired, what are the documents which are missing from the employee records, and a notification based approach where a system can provide a good notification and reports to the HR teams to provide those kind of approach or those kind of notifications to the extended teams. Self-service access to the employees to generate those kind of documentations, to create those documents on their behalf. And finally, guarantee document retention and disposition, because that is also very important, specifically after the separation. You don't want to keep employee records and blotter your entire HR systems. What you need to retain is the specific records. At times by law also you need to remove some of the personal records. So moving those different policies on different documents, that is where the entire management of retention, records management, legal holds would help us to provide those kind of situations to manage those documents. And finally, yes, compliance is what we need to all work around. HR being a personal topic which needs a bit more focus from the compliance perspective. So that is the HR needs that we have seen, what an HR organizations are looking forward for. Let us see how at OpenText we solve these issues. And this is where I will call my colleague Varna to take the session forward.
So I just wanted to share my slides. So I don't know if you can stop sharing, or I don't mind if you.
Yeah, I've stopped sharing my slide. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, So let's just look at how we manage documents using the OpenText system. So as Garen has said, managing documents within HR is challenging and it's complex. Simply to make sure that your day-to-day operations happen on time and in context. It's difficult to make sure that sensitive records are securely managed and they're migrated or removed when required. And actually what we've seen is that it affects, lots of different departments. For example, in HR, IT management, they're kind of focused on reducing costs and complexity around infrastructure. You've got your shared services managers who are focused on ensuring that the business processes are optimized and that they improve their communications both to employees and at a service level, just to make sure that you keep on top of that and making sure that you have central access to employee records. And also kind of for HR managers as well, making sure that they've got a complete set of employee files to make sure that they can manage their paperwork and manage their administration as well as doing their other jobs. So it's kind of important from our point of view that we recognize that HR is complex and it affects a number of departments outside of HR and across the organization. So what are the key benefits of supporting the HR solution? So what we're proposing is that we can provide a unified interface for employees and HR managers so that you can access your records really quickly. Also by doing that, we're looking at increasing productivity by offering self-service, as we said before, and also digitizing documents, both documents that are created for employees that are in position and for storing historic records so that they're also stored in the same place. At the same time, having privacy attached and security attached to all documents so that you can meet requirements such as GDPR, employee access requests. So when somebody asks for a copy of their contract, they can get it incredibly quickly and it's secure. And also having different ways of communicating with employees across the organization, whether that's paper, whether that's email, whether that's text, but actually everything is stored and managed from one location. And that's what we're proposing, and that's what we can see from the benefits of the solution. So what are the key integrations that we have? So if we look at SuccessFactors, we have 5 key integration points. If I kind of just pick out maybe 3 at this stage, one would be the UI integration, and that's unique to OpenText and the partnership we have with SAP, in that an employee or a HR manager logs into SuccessFactors, they use the same username and password, and they get access to all of their employee records. And we make sure that when an individual moves from a department or is relocated, they still have access to those records, and their securities would change if they change departments, for example, and a new manager needed to get access to their records. We also provide integrated workflows so that if an action happens within SuccessFactors, that trigger can also create a document, for example. So if you are moving departments and your contract needs to change because your working hours are changed, we can have the system so that those documents are automatically generated. And those are just some of the key, the few integration points that we have with SAP SuccessFactors. So again, so what are we proposing? We're proposing that whether you have Employee Central or whether you have the recruitment module onboarding, all of the information is stored in one location. So you don't have to go to separate modules to get access to those records. It's all stored in a central location. And regardless of where you are in the region, you can get access to those documents depending on your role. Okay, so you might say from your point of view, how do we enhance SAP SuccessFactors? So from your point of view, when you buy Employee Central, for example, there is a document store. So you can attach and upload documents into Employee Central. But what we're proposing is that on top of that, we add a whole additional groups of features and functions. So for example, if you've got historic records, so you've got somebody's file where they've been working for you for 1 or 10 years, and you've got a folder of those documents, with OpenText, we can then upload those documents into the same storage area and then also access documents that are created from SuccessFactors, SAP SuccessFactors. So they're all stored in one location. When they're stored in one location, then we have audit that can be attached to all of those records, regardless of where they've come from, so that you can see who's accessed the records, when they've accessed those records, and you can run a report at any given time. So those are some of the key reasons why SAP SuccessFactors have partnered with OpenText to add document management to their solution. And on top of that, again, you might say that SAP SuccessFactors has the ability to generate documents and letters for employees. But again, SAP SuccessFactors has chosen us because we then add additional functionality on top of that. So for example, if you've got a complex contract that you need to be generated, we can support you in that, so that specific paragraphs or sections can be added to the contract depending on roles. So it's role-based or job-based or location-based, whatever that is, but we can help you create those documents so that they can be personalized for employees. And there are no limits to the number of documents that can be created. And again, all of that could then link to an electronic signature such as DocuSign, so that we reduce the ability to actually need to print paper, and everything is stored in one location. So if we remember right back at the beginning when Garan started, how can we help improve the new hire process? So on one side, we've got what it is without OpenText, and the other is with OpenText. And some of the key things that we need to look at is that we can automate the production of documents such as offer letters based on the data within SuccessFactors, SAP SuccessFactors, to improve HR efficiencies. We can support seamless employee transfers. So when an employee moves from one role to another or from one location, that information can be done seamlessly. And by integrating to, for example, SAP SuccessFactors roles and permissions, that information can automatically be changed at one click of a button, removing any manual steps that are required within the process without without OpenText. And then the last one, again, when we look
Varna, I think there was a question on your previous slide in terms of integration to Office 365.
Okay, so what we have within the solution is the ability to add a feature so that you can also collaborate with and use Office 365. So as standard, the system includes the ability to integrate with Word and with Outlook. But if you want to collaborate with Office 365 in real time, for example, you want to collaborate on a document, that can be done. What some organizations have done is purchase some additional licenses for administration or HR to be able to do that, but that is completely possible with the solution. I hope that answers your question. I'm quite happy to come back to that at the end. We have time for Q&A at the end.
Okay, go on, thanks.
Okay, so as I said, just to finish off, we've got reducing risk. Again, is a key process for lots of organizations such as you, so that when an employee leaves and their permission is stopped within SuccessFactors, automatically at the same time their permission is stopped within the OpenText system and access to their records. But it does not mean their records are deleted. their documents and records remain there for as long as the organization manages the system or has access to the system. So in 2 years' time, if they want a copy of all of their HR records, that is available to the organization to either forward or to give them access at any given time. Okay, so if we just look at some of the key benefits from the business's point of view and from the user's point of view, just to conclude. So from a shared services point of view, you'll have access to recruiting and onboarding documents from the same location. From an employee or a manager's point of view, they can get access to their records at any time, from anywhere, when required. From IT point of view, all of the infrastructure and all of the hardware that goes around supporting this is something that SAP and OpenText do together. All of that cost and all of that headache is removed. And at the same time, the compliance officers can be assured that all employee records are fully audited with the time and the date and the person that accessed those records. Okay, so if we just quickly look at a couple of case studies that I just kind of want to bring light to you. So HR Magnesita was a case study that we were involved with. And if I remember correctly, Claudius was their project manager. And what was really important to him from the beginning was both removing paper and making their processes digital and more integrated. So those were their two key things that they needed to do. And in fact, he spoke at a Sapphire Roundtable conference with SAP SuccessFactors around their implementation and their value that they saw from implementing the solution. And again, at the end of this conference, there is a link to their story there, and you can get access to that video if that's required. So again, they were around 15,000 employees, and they went live within 3 months. So because they were clear on what their objectives were, we focused on those in the early stages to reduce their paper and to increase reduce their processing time. Again, another case study. This is again another manufacturing organization, again around a medium-sized organization with 12,000 employees. Again, they were focused on having a consolidated single location that they could access their employee records. And again, they got a partner to help them to configure the solution, which they continue to work with in support of OpenText. And kind of the last case study I wanted to put in here was a pharmaceutical company with 1,500 employees. So just to show you that the size of organization can be large or small. And again, they were focused in the first step, they wanted to reduce the manual steps. They were storing documents within SharePoint, and they kept having to copy and paste data from SuccessFactors, take it over to Word, do the documents, and they found that there were too many errors and too many manual steps. And that was one of their key processes. So their first step was to store the documents centrally and give employees access. Their second step was then to reduce the processing time and reduce some of those manual steps. Okay. So, and that was it from me. We have finished a little ahead of time, around 5 or 6 minutes. And I'm sure if there are any questions, Garan and I would be happy to take them.
Sure, thank you, Varna. And thanks, Gagan, as well. So everyone, we are ready to take on questions. We see a few questions in the chat window as well. Do we want to take them serially, Mukesh? How do you want to do that?
Let me ask the question, and maybe whoever has asked the question, if you want to add more color to the question, you can do so as well. So the first one is based on the last thing that we spoke about, which is can any document generated by a user using an SF document generation be automatically moved to an OpenText storage?
Okay, so there's two places that documents will be generated. So SuccessFactors has the ability to create its own documents, and if they're created in SuccessFactors or they're uploaded into EC or onboarding, for example, they would be stored in the employee file in the correct folder with the correct permissions automatically. On top of that, OpenText has the ability to create what we call document templates, and they create documents. And it's simply down to permissions who has access to create documents. And there is no limit to the number of templates or documents that can be created. So,
yeah, I think the question was on the second part, because SuccessFactors also allows to create some template using which we could do documents. And so the question was, if we use that, which today traditionally some of us may be using, can those documents move to OpenText, was the question. But I heard you as well. You said OpenText, you can do your templates in OpenText, and if you use that, that naturally comes and gets stored in OpenText. So I know.
So regardless of which you use, if you use SAP or whether you use OpenText, the system is set up so it automatically saves those documents when they're generated into the right employee folder.
In SAP, there are two types. I think you captured the first type, which is like onboarding, or where certain processes generate certain documents on its own, right? Yes. Those, it's very clear, straightforward, goes to OpenText. But SAP also does allow a templatization of certain documents, which you could generate using self-service, not from an event. So the question was, can those go? What I hear as an alternative or possibility that you're saying is you could templatize the same in OpenText, and that can be stored in OpenText. That's what I heard.
Yes. My only, I suppose, just for clarity, there are some documents that are in SuccessFactors that appear as documents, but they're actually forms. So if they are forms, then we would need to convert those to PDF, for example, and then those could be saved into the system. So if they are web forms, then those don't get saved automatically. We need to save it as a document and then save it.
That is a step of manual intervention. Yeah. Okay.
So there is a question from Lokpal. He's asking, role-based permissions will be in sync of SuccessFactors permissions, or do we need to create separate permission groups in OpenText?
Okay, so what we do is when we start the implementation, we take the roles and permissions within SuccessFactors and we just duplicate them within OpenText, but they're synchronized. OpenText does have the ability to have more granular permissions. So it may be that some document types you don't want, for example, you don't want managers to see medical records. So what we can do is on when we do the roles, we can say managers don't see specific document types. So as standard, we match the permissions so that they're the same. But again, even on that synchronization, we can make some granular changes if that's required. But again, we still control it from SuccessFactors, regardless of how granular you make it.
Okay. And there is a question around the sync itself. So from SuccessFactors to OpenText, is that real time, which is API based, or schedule basis, which is SFTP based?
So, well, it is on a synchronized, but we can actually say the synchronized happens in real time. So we're talking about a second, but then there are different synchronization jobs for different actions. So permissions, we'd say they're real time, but it's synchronized, but it could be half a second. It could be saving a document, could be half a second. So it's real time, but it's a synchronization process. With one of our modules, you can produce, for example, documents in batches. Some organizations want that to happen out of office hours. So I know you want to produce some performance documents or a certificate. We could produce 200 or 300 for a particular region, but do it outside of office hours so that it doesn't affect the normal running of the system, for example.
Okay. So there was a question about where these documents are stored itself. So the question from Riju Raj is, how is the storage architecture? Where does the document reside? Is it in the same data center of SF or in some other place? Second, would it be possible to see some screen transactions for us to kind of relate to what you're talking about?
Okay, so okay. Do you want to answer that?
I'll take it, yeah, Varna. So the DC option that we have would be from the OpenText. So it stores into the OpenText data centers this document storage that we have. We can also propose an on-prem options if you want to have it stored into your own data centers and repository. Talking about the screens, let me share and I'll showcase some screens how this the solution looks like and what kind of a view the solution would have. Give me a minute, I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah. So this is the screen, how it looks like. So all the documents that get stored into the repository would have a document folder structure view, and it also have a dossier view. The dossier view will give you what kind of a documents it has, a small view, so that it can be correlated very easily in the screens itself. Not only that, it also provides you the actions. If there is some kind of an approval or a pending approval from the BPHR or managers that needs to be taken before it gets published into the employees structure, it can be taken there. If there are any missing documents, it can also be highlighted by a mark there. Any kind of outdated documents, it would also be highlighted. So basically all the documents get managed seamlessly, and you get the notification of those documents there and there itself. Employees can go ahead and add the documents themselves depending on the access that they would have, so that the living documents or the documents that are missing can be completed by them self rather than HR uploading those documents. We can also put a date of origin, date of expiry, and so on and so forth in the entire solution for the documentations. Coming down to the workflows, you can go and initiate a workflow on the proper documents. So the moment you add a document and those document needs, for example, an HR view or HR approval, you can initiate a workflow, and the workflow would get the required teams names and the SLAs that can be followed by the central team or the HR shared service personnel to work on it. From the document management perspective, of course, we would have much more other functions that we can showcase in a detailed demo sessions that we would plan with you in an stipulated time. What we also have is document generation. So we talk about, there was a question on document generation, how it gets stored into it. So there is a document generation capability. So if there are some documents, for example, a yearly IT policy, which a document or which every employee needs to read and sign through those documents. So for example, those documents can be generated by the tool itself with the standard layout. It gives the ability to generate the document signed by the employees, and then that document can get stored once generated and approved, can store into the document repository, and it gets the part of the employee folder structure itself, which can be the part of the HR storage. So we do have quite a few document generation, legal compliance, and other stories which can be the part of the entire documentation process to it. Yeah. Okay.
So there were a few questions that were actually raised when the registration process itself concerning the national IDs. So I put those questions on the chat. First one was, how do you manage storage of national IDs in a separate instance? How do you put a password to the documents automatically for storage? How do you post documents directly from other systems than SAP? For example, we do, SAP SuccessFactors example, they don't have RCM. How do you manage? So that's the questions. I think I put it twice, but those are the 3-4 questions that are there.
Okay, so let me just, handling your national ID. So I'm assuming the national ID is a document type. So if it's a document, then each document that's uploaded into the system has a security attached to it, which is attached to the SAP role. So first of all, when a document is uploaded, you will have the user and the role that can access it. So if you're not their manager and you're not the employee, for example, you wouldn't have access to that document. We could even make it that that the manager doesn't see it, it's just somebody in HR administration and the employee. So those are the only two people that could access it. Once it's stored within the system, you have to have the correct username and password to get access to the document. And even then, anybody that does get access, the system audits the time and the date that is then done. So all the documents are stored in the same location, but each has a separate user password that's connected to the correct role.
Okay, thank you. So Rohan, if you have a follow-up question on that, or if that helps, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I think I had not put it in a right way, maybe, or it wasn't communicated well. So maybe what we are trying to ask is that the national IDs that are uploaded by the candidates, is there a way to make it secure in a totally separate database as a whole? Or is there a way or an OCR which can read and let us know that, okay, this document is a national ID document and that has to be stored in a secured way in a totally different, logical compartment as a whole. So is that possible in a way?
So first of all, because of the infrastructure, where the documents are stored, first of all the documents that are stored are encrypted at rest. So that's first of all, to get at all those documents are encrypted. So and from there, we don't store different documents in different repositories. They're all stored in the same repository, and they just have encryption and security access on it. And really, the organizations that have purchased the systems, from pharmaceuticals to financial organizations, all have gone through the same security questionnaires and setups, and they are happy with the fact that they are sure that all the employee records are stored in the correct place with the correct encryption and security passwords. So if there are specific questions that you have, we have a security team that can answer those questions if you still feel unsure.
Thanks. So there is a question regarding the latency of the data itself. So if there is any data integration failure to OpenText due to downtime or some other issue, does the pending document gets queued and synced at a later stage when the OpenText platform is up again, or the integration is up again?
So yeah, I said yes. I think I can get some information around the number of times the system has gone down or stopped working, because those are few and far between. So there is a backup system so if it's down for any length of time, there is a backup system that we then put into place. But again, if you want some information around how the system restarts if a document is being uploaded and the system slows, then we can provide you that information.
Okay, so while I come to the next question, I'm just opening up a poll to collect feedback. It'll be great if you can share your feedback as well. So there is a question around, can you have third-party recruiting onboarding application, and can you integrate it with EC? Yes, of course. There are standard application interfaces that SAP provides, using which you can do that integration with EC for sure. Then there was a question around, how do you create a document tracking system in SAP, right? So for example, appointment letter, etc., it must have its own unique ID, date, time. Yes, that is possible using the business technology platform. You can, but to get specific answer in terms of how to do that, I think it is best that you talk to your account management team at SAP as well. So there is another question which was around ATS. So Rohan also asked, we have a separate ATS other than SF. Is it possible to push documents from that ATS to OpenText or SF and see that those documents in one place?
So as far as the system's concerned, as long as the documents that you want to push or pull are related to HR, then they can be stored within the system. We have out-of-the-box integration to SAP SuccessFactors and to on-premise HCM. But if you have other HR systems, supporting systems, we can integrate to them. It would be a matter of working out what integration you want, and it would be something that OpenText Professional Services or a partner would have to configure, but that is possible. As long as it's related to HR, we could store those documents, yes.
Okay, thanks. Akhilesh, I see your question. I think it's very technical. My recommendation is open a service ticket for this, and I'm sure that the SAP support team will be able to answer your question or address your challenge. Sandeep, yes, you can use the standard integration options that BTP as a technology platform provides to integrate both with ECC and S4. I hope that's the answer that's the question that you had regarding integration. So there's a question from Lokpal again around reports or dashboard. Is it possible to get reports or dashboard basis the missing and available documents, or mandatory or non-mandatory documents?
So yes, the system provides a dashboard to list missing or outdated documents. You can then create any number of other reports that are required. It could be based on the document, based on the metadata, based on who's accessed the system. So all of that is possible, yes.
Okay, so I believe I've covered all the questions that were there on the chat and those that came through the registration process, and I've not missed. So if I have missed, maybe whoever has asked a question and I have not read it out, maybe you should unmute yourself and ask the question.
So there is a question around how do you put a password to documents? Can we answer that?
So as I said, so somebody might have, an employee might have 50 different documents in their employee file. Each document doesn't have its individual password, but what we do say is that depending on the document type depends on which individual can view that document. And that is done as part of the permission setup. So we set out all the different document types and we say who has permission to access, and we link that to SAP SuccessFactors roles. So it's the permissions that control, and it's your username and password when you log into SuccessFactors to decide which documents you can see and which documents related to which employee you can see.
Great. I think in the chat there was a question around the destruction or doing away with the documents when their use is over. Is there some corollary that we want to give around that?
So as I said, when somebody leaves the organization, their records do not automatically get deleted. The documents stay there for as long as the organization requires it. What we then say is that we can then set up retention rules on those different documents. So depending on the document, we can say how long those documents need to be kept before they're destroyed. But all of those rules are your rules, and you can configure them with our support, or we can configure them for you.
Can we, sorry to barge in. Can we have a document type based retention policy? So for say a particular type of document, I have retention policy of say 6 months, and for say National IDs, it's only 1 month after the separation, something like that. Can we set up something like that?
That's exactly what we do.
So Rohan, yes, just to answer that, that is the purpose of retention policies. Various document types would have various different rules, and it can be different events also, not only the date wise, it could be a trigger of an event. So when you say an employee leaves an organization is an event, on that event, I want to pass down his education records, but not his Form 16 and other records. So that's the event, the separation event would take him out of the education records, but the Form 16 records would have a different retention policy. So that can be done. One more question I see is on the ECC and S4 HANA versions. Does it work on both? So as Varna mentioned, we have integration with SAP HCM on-prem version of HR solution, and also with the SuccessFactor solution on the newer stack that we have. And anything apart from that would need an integration, which can also be done. So yes, we can have both versions.
Thanks,
As a
Gagan.
follow-up to the earlier question, there was a private question to me. If any candidate's documents synced from RCM or onboarding to OpenText, and in later, if the candidate is dropping out, does the auto archive happen for the data or the document? Yes, right. So that's, I think you've already answered that question when you are presenting it, sir.
Sure. There is a question from Sridevi, which is asking, can the PMGM data flow into the document generation and help in generating the assessment result letters?
Sorry, I didn't. Could you repeat? Sorry.
So I'll answer that one. Yes, Salil. So we do have integrations with talent modules of SF. So anything to do with the succession planning, learning, performance, and goals, that can be also integrated, and documents would get stored into the employee folder structure that we will create for each and every employee.
Thank you.
I also missed a question from Deepak. What is the size or limit of data per employee when you're licensing?
So what we do with the system is that we have an overall size. So it's 50 megabytes per employee, but that's times by the whole organization. So one employee might not use all of that. So we have an overall size, and at any time during the contract, if you reach the size of the overall environment, you can purchase more storage. So some organization want to backscan historic records for employees that have left the organization. You can buy more storage so that we can store those records.
So there is a question by Hinal, says, can we upload the documents of ex-employees whose profiles exist on SuccessFactors?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Suchitra is asking a question which I do not know whether it is an OpenText related question or an SF related question. She says, need some clarity on the single upload document in one shot in SF Document Center. What can be done?
So within SuccessFactors Employee Central, there is on some of the screens there is a field that says attach documents. So for example, attach your driving license. When you attach your driving license, the system will check your security and check your passwords and the document type, and it will store it into the OpenText system automatically.
Okay, but we are uploading single.
Okay.
It's taking too much time, like to upload each document. See, there is one Aadhaar, PAN, and some other documents. We are uploading, going to in SF Document Center. We are uploading one by one. So it is taking so much of time. Yes. Per employee, it is suppose 5 documents or 10 documents. Imagine I have today hiring about 10 people. So imagine like 10 into 50 documents upload I have to do today as per my SLA suppose. So can we get any support on this, like in one shot all together, zip karke, can we upload it in the document center? So this is a main thing which you are facing issues. So you can help, or
so you can drag and drop documents into the OpenText interface, but adding one document at a time is what SuccessFactors allows you to do. But we could do that in the OpenText solution. Yes, we could drag a few documents and put them in. Yes.
Okay, I think we've answered all the questions that the team raised. I hope it was useful, helpful for all of you. Okay, there are the questions keep coming.
Yes, and they want some demo as well. I think a system demo as a follow-up will be very helpful.
That's really good.
So maybe we can do this another time.
Another time, yes.
And we can continue to have this conversation again. But for today, I think we've reached the time that we had planned for today's session. Thank you so much for all your time, attention, and questions. These questions make these sessions, number one, more interesting, number two, more useful for everyone concerned. So at any point in time, please do join the WhatsApp group that we have, and you can continue to post your questions there, and we'll try and see if we can get your answers there in that group as well. So I posted the link to the WhatsApp group on the chat. You can use that. And also the recording of the session is available on the YouTube channel of Indus. The link to the YouTube video is also on the chat. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
wish you all a great day.
meeting you.
Take care.
Have
Thanks
a good
a lot.
one.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thanks to the OpenText team for taking time and sharing your insights. Bye.
Thanks for the platform, Mukesh. Bye-bye.